Yeah, I was thinking about this, that the quarterback needy teams, probably the Raiders will feel they're the most set up, the three, right? Because O'Connell could be okay. And
Yeah.
Minshew, as backups go, is as interesting and reliable. I'm looking at this relatively speaking.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
What are Denver going to do? And we'll get
Yeah,
to Denver obviously imminently, but let's say Denver don't make that play up. Sitting at 12 without jumping too far ahead, if they don't take a quarterback at 12, which would be reaching, I guess, for
yeah.
the other two on the board, assuming those other four have gone, then you've got the aforementioned Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr., right? So
Yeah.
you taking all crazy quarterback run panic buys aside, where would you rank them on your board? Are they like late 20s, even second
Oh,
rounders?
yeah, yes. I mean that. So we had when we put our call out for the mailbag,
Mm,
someone had said about who's a prediction for a draft bust, and
right.
I apologize. I remember seeing the question. I don't remember who said it,
I might be able to help
but
you out. Keep talking, Benny. I will dig
okay.
it out because I'm going to open up the mailbag as you're talking.
Okay. So I can't make a prediction on who's going to be a bust, right? Because every single player that I would project as going in the first round has loads of potential and in theory should be a good player. That never happens. Obviously, you always get some busts. So I wouldn't make a call on a player being a bust, but I would make a call on a player being way, way overdrafted. Now, Zach Wilson, you can say he's been a bust. But the biggest issue with Zach Wilson is he was overdrafted. He was drafted much too high for everything he'd put on film
Hmm.
beforehand. If Zach Wilson had gone at the top of the second round and he hadn't quite worked out, you wouldn't be like, oh, what a terrible
Sure.
bust. You'd be
Sure.
like a swing and a miss, right?
Yeah.
My so the reason I'm thinking of this right now is that if Bo Nix and Michael Penix, who are decent prospects, if they find themselves drafted in the top 15, in my eyes, that is they're overdrafted.
But
They have
but so,
gone
so
much too
so
early.
let's just follow that through then. So the Broncos at 12, we're going to jump around a bit here because look at the mailbag. There are some really interesting questions relating to the first 10 and all kind of obviously interconnects, not even kind of. If the Broncos don't get a quarterback at 12, what is there a chance they if they don't trade up to reach up, that they trade the 12 down as opposed to
But
overpaying? What is their plan? Is it
yeah,
is it
I
going to be
I
like because you look at where they're at? Is it going to be we're getting to July and suddenly that's Josh Rosen's music as
yeah.
as the
Yeah,
season
I
shapes in a view? It's Rosen's music. I mean,
it's
where are they
yeah,
going to go?
it's yeah, it's I'm if I was a Broncos fan, I'd be really scared right now because
Right.
like you say, of those three teams that look like they're the most quarterback hungry, the Vikings, they've got the draft capital. They can make a move. If they want to trade up and get one of their guys, they can do it. They can control their own destiny. The Raiders, if they don't get someone, I think they can survive a year
Yeah.
without looking terrible. The Broncos are in a massive hole. The Broncos without a quarterback, I don't know what this team is going to do. I think that team will be really bad, and that is frightening.
Now
So
the draft bus question, by the way, was from Ed. Thanks, Ed, for that.
thank you, Ed. That was an excellent one.
Let me weave in a couple of the Passion Avenue mailbag questions straight off the bat. This is from Mike. Hey, Mike. At the end, Mike Carlson and Mike McBride. Hey, Mike.
I projected Arizona trading with Minnesota so that Minnesota would have pick 4, Arizona would receive 11 and 23. And then I've got the Bears trading down as well. And I've got them trading with the Raiders and the Raiders taking pick 11
Okay, I love
at
it.
that
You've got
point.
you've got proper draft day on us.
Yeah.
Okay, well maybe
But
it's
that I
because
just
look at
just to
the other way
explain,
around.
that's why the Raiders have
The
got
Raiders
number
were on the pick
11
at 11.
in that
If
fantasy world.
in the non-fantasy world, and this is interesting, you've got McCarthy going to Minnesota at 11.
Yeah, no, this is the thing. It's that I tie myself in knots with ways that the Vikings can trade up. And then in a no trade one, I've got them having McCarthy fall into their laps. Now, the reason I don't think this will happen is that someone will trade up for him.
Yeah,
But
sure.
if there were no trades, if the Giants didn't take him, then he'll fall to the Vikings. That's the way that I would see it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because the charges we talked about, obviously, Tennessee, yeah, he will fall. Okay, so either way, let's go with the first corner on the board. And we think 11 to 20 is going to be a run of corners. So let's frame this with this cornerback class. I'm obviously fascinated because it's my favorite position in the game, as you well know. We've talked a little bit about it in the offseason already, but give us the elevator pitch for the gang out there in terms of the 2024 cornerback class, because you've got Quinion Mitchell, of course, Nate Wiggins from Clemson, Terrion Arnold, who you think is going to go highest out of all of them, right? In terms he's the Bama corner, but they're all really, really close. You're seeing a lot of them run in this 11 to 20 patch.
Yeah, and I really struggle to separate those top three. And it's a really deep cornerback draft, but it's characterized by probably none of them being a top 10 talent and none of them going in the top 10 because of the wide receivers, because of the quarterbacks. But like wide receivers, where you can just, this year, you can just keep, you can be like, I'll wait, I'll get a wide receiver later. Like I was talking about the yellow stickers and the reduced Easter eggs, you can get yourself a bargain late on. You can probably get the same with the cornerback, not necessarily at like an every down guy. But yeah, those top three are fantastic. We've seen better ones going kind of like top 10. I struggle to separate them. But those top three, Terry and Arnold, I've got as my number one. But if someone wants to say Kenyon Mitchell or Nate Wiggins, I'm not going to be like, really? Like, it's all eye of the beholder.
Who's the Iowa? Cooper
DeJean. Now, Cooper DeJean, I have slightly
We're going DeJean.
lower.
We're going DeJean. So if I go DeJean, it's not gonna.
I want it to be DeJean, but they are saying DeJean.
DeJean.
I don't like it. But we got to live with it.
Hey, he's one of Jimmy's guys. Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy's gonna win. But it feels like they're all kind of in the same. There's a run of players that are around the same level that will go potentially top 20. That could be day one plug and play starters.
Yeah. And I think we're going to see a little bit more of that in years to come, especially with cornerbacks and wide receivers, because of the value being placed on those positions more and more, and the way that offenses in college are changing, the defense is catching up, and then the NFL has to catch up to what college is doing, because basically in terms of schemes where college leads, NFL follows. The college ranks are just, we're seeing it now, and we're going to see even more, a production line of wide receivers and cornerbacks who are NFL ready. Just put them in straight away. They are ready to go. I think we'll see a bit less of it with quarterbacks and offensive tackles, but because these are such premium positions, it feels like this is it's a little bit chalky, to use the betting phrase, in terms of the way that the positions are going in this year's draft. And I think we're going to get a lot more of that. I think quarterbacks it's going to be a bit more erratic, not just their performance, but in terms of kind of how good it is year to year. But I wouldn't be surprised if over the next 4 or 5 years, the way that we're talking is, yep, here's a great pile of fantastic receivers, a great pile of fantastic cornerbacks.
Okay, so we're going to publish this as well, of course, both on the blog, on the website, the NC Show, and Seb and the crew will push it out on our social channels too, to recap Ben's 1 to 20 picks, with and without trades. This is just to recap in a no trade world, which we expect to be extremely unlikely, but just if it was as it stands right now, JJ McCarthy at 11 to the Vikings. God, they love that. If he stays there at 11, they have to do it for him. Terrion Arnold, the Bama corner, goes to the Broncos at 12. Kenyon Mitchell, Toledo. Yeah.
Holy Toledo.
Kenyon Mitchell. That's the Raiders at 13. Talise Fuaga, one of the tackles to the Saints at 14. Brock Bowers, what a steal that would be for the Colts at 15. Laiatu Latu, the edge rusher to this new re-upped, rebooted Seattle up front from UCLA at 16. Nate Wiggins, one of the corners to Jags at 17. JC Latham, offensive tackle strengthening Burrow's protection to the Bengals at 18. Cooper DeJean to the Rams at 19. And then Byron Murphy, you mentioned, ferocious D lineman at 22. Well, one of the best places any ferocious D lineman could go, really. Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. Ben, brilliant. We're going to wrap things up by diving back to the mailbag for one last time today anyway. Let's see what we've got that we haven't already covered. A lot of you getting in touch with us at the NC show. Incidentally, I want to give a shout out to all our new subscribers. Spotify, there's a real spike in subscribers on Spotify. I think it might be something to do with Google shutting Google Podcasts, and although Google's migrating pod subscribers to YouTube, so I think a lot of you will just manage that transition that way. I'm guessing some of you have jumped ship from Google already. Or maybe you haven't. Maybe you're just all brand new listeners, but it's great to see a spike in Spotify listeners. So big shout out to anyone that's listening to the show for the first time, or indeed will be one of our new listeners. We appreciate you having you along for the ride, and we appreciate you taking time to listen to us. If you want to make sure you don't miss an episode, hit subscribe.